dangerous and likely is this threat to Nigeria's transition and continued democracy? Well, earlier, we did speak to Professor Jibril Ibrahim, who is a senior fellow at the Center for Democracy and Development.
They made 3 points. The first point is that people are planning to demonstrate, and they will demonstrate. Nigerians are always demonstrating, and Nigerians have a right to demonstrate. So that's not an issue. That's normal everyday life. That a lot of Nigerians are dissatisfied, and they express themselves as the Constitution and our laws allow them to do. The second point they are saying is that because Nigerians will demonstrate, that will lead to a declaration of a state of emergency. And that's where I lost it completely. A declaration of a state of emergency is done by the National Assembly and the President. So is the DSS telling Nigerians that the President and the National Assembly are plotting to prevent an elected president from assuming office? If that's their conclusion, then they shouldn't do a general statement to Nigerians. They should do a memo to the president and to the leadership of the National Assembly saying that we've discovered you, this is what you are trying to do, and we ask you to stop. And then the question of whether the courts will stop the swearing in of the president. We have a constitution based on the separation of powers. So you have the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive, and each one plays their role. Cases have been taken to court. The courts will process, they will adjudicate, they will take a decision. And whatever decision the courts take, we are bound to accept it. Well, that's my position, that if they have evidence that some people are plotting, then they should go ahead and do their work, which is to get those people who are plotting to cause trouble. But my real concern is that the scenarios they are creating are scenarios that could only be practiced out by the president and by the National Assembly. You know, Nigeria has suffered a lot from multiple forms of violence, from jihadism through to secessionism, militancy, banditry, kidnapping, and all that. But the fact of the matter is that over the last 1 year, the level of violence has been going down. The security agencies have been increasing their success in dealing with these harbingers of violence. In fact, the security services have just announced that over 50,000 Boko Haram militants have surrendered to the military over the past 1 year. The new planes, the Tucano aircraft they have had, has been very successful in finding out terrorists and bandits and dealing with them. Every day in the newspapers, we hear reports of successes by our security agencies. So the facts before us as Nigerians is that there is no imminent danger looming on the horizon. What is on the horizon is improvement in the security situation. And that's why I've had great difficulties understanding the message from the Department of State Security. What I will say is that the Electoral Commission has declared Ahmed Tinubu to be the winner of the presidential election. Some of the candidates that contested against him do not agree with that verdict, and they've gone to court. And the court is going to adjudicate on the matter. So, what we have to do as citizens of this country is, at this point, we accept the decision of the Electoral Commission. We go ahead, and once the time for swearing in comes in, of course he would be sworn in as the next president of the country, and President Buhari will retire to his farm in Daura. If eventually the courts declare otherwise at the level of the Supreme Court, then that becomes the new decision for the country. So it's really a question of allowing institutions play their role. I think we should avoid confusing Nigerians.
That's Professor Jibril Ibrahim earlier. And joining us now in the studios are Dr. Habiba Lawal, who is the Secretary of the Presidential Transition Committee, and Arise Judicial Editor, Tobi Soniyi. Thanks for joining us on Newsnight. Maybe I'll just start with Arise Legal Editor and Deputy Director News. The kind of alarm that the Department of State Services, has raised, saying that, look, we know the culprits, we've identified them. If the DSS has so identified them, why not, grab them and charge them to court? Why the unnecessary alarm hitting the polity? Tobi?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I want to agree with you, but, the intelligence community sometimes does not work that way. They may still be gathering evidence, and I think the statement they issue is one of the way of stopping what they envisage will happen. They may not have gathered enough evidence, but I quite agree with you that the statement was quite categorical if you have identified them. But the other point is that the offense may not have been completely completed, and if there is no offense, there is no point to arrest anyone. Be that as it may, allow me, Chris, to also clarify, from what Professor Jibril said. It appears he misconstrued part of the statement by the DSS. What the DSS is saying that there will be violent protests, that the president will not have a choice but to declare a state of emergency. It's not that both the president and the Senate are aware or are working together. Because according to Section 305, if there is complete breakdown of law, the president will not have a choice. So what the statement is saying is that the people they have identified plan to sponsor violent protests, something akin to that of NSAS protests, that police station might be sacked and there will be complete breakdown of law and order, that the president will not have any other choice but to invoke Section 305. I think that clarification is quite necessary, Chris.
Tobi, thank you so much for painting the scenario under the law where a state of emergency can come in. But let's bring the conversation into the studio now and speak to Dr. Habiba Lawal. Of course, we know that arrangements are ongoing for the transition of power from President Muhammadu Buhari to the president-elect. But I want to get your reaction, really, to this statement by the DSS in the context of the work that you and members of your committee are doing. How do you place this threat?
Thank you very much. I would like to say that as far as the Presidential Transition Committee or Council, it's actually a council. The Presidential Transition Council is concerned, the threat that has just been shared by the DSS will not stop the work of the transition. The Transition Council will continue with its work to inaugurate a new president come May 29, 2023. And I want to believe that both the DSS and other security apparatus will do their work to ensure that the threat does not materialize. And therefore, as far as we're concerned in the council, we're going to continue preparing and ensuring that we have a successful transition of power from the current administration to the new administration. So I would like to affirm that the threat will not stop or deter the Presidential Transition Council from the work that she's doing to ensure a successful and seamless transition of power.
All right, thanks very much, Dr. Habiba. A committee really is being set up, so the work is ongoing, threat or no threat. But Tobi, let's come to you in the Upside studio. When threats like these are given, by Nigeria's secret police, they must be taken very seriously. The worrisome thing we mentioned is that the agency has not been able to name names, but can such threats really be carried out by the civil populace or the military? Who truncates the government in Nigeria?
Well, it's nice to be back to you. First and foremost, the Constitution of Nigeria is very clear. Section 1, subsection 2. It has specified that the country will be governed according to the Constitution, and that nobody can take over the government except in the way provided by the Constitution. So, but in the DSS statement, they identified 3 categories, and I think it's very important to take note. They identified the judiciary, that those who are making the plan will go to court, they will file frivolous cases, and they are likely to get a frivolous order. Then they identified civil society organizations, that they will use them to continue to do protests. And then they identified the media. And that is where you and I come in, that there may be statements that are fake news, and that if media carries such story, we may create panic in the society. So that is why, as I said earlier, it may not be just easy to arrest anyone. For instance, the Constitution allows you to go to court. So if you go to court, and the courts give you an order to do that, which is not right, that is the involvement of the judiciary. If people continue, the Constitution provides for people to protest, but if protests turn violent, that is beyond the Constitution. We can have breakdown of law and order. And then if media become purveyors of fake news, we can create panic and mislead the public. That is why I think the DSS is warning both the judiciary, warning the media, and warning the civil society that don't allow yourself to be used. This is what some people plan to do, and this is to bring you ahead of the thing. Now that you know, you cannot claim, you cannot say, okay, we are not aware that that was their intention. So I'm sure the judiciary will be at alert, the media will be at alert, even the CSO will also be at alert and make sure that nobody uses them to achieve an illegal end.
Right. Well, you're talking about the judiciary. We'll come back and really talk about it, especially if you look at the Electoral Act 2022 as amended and the time frame provided with regards to litigations, which some of them are ongoing right now. But let's bring in Dr. Habiba back into this conversation. Yes, the president back in February had actually, approved this transition council by signing that executive order number 14. Well, without letting us in on all that you have been doing, speaking about the council, but I do know that it's a 13-man council with 13 other subcommittees. Can you walk us through some of the work that you are doing, especially as it concerns security and all of these threats that we are seeing or have been seeing for months until the one that, of course, the DSS did release today?
Thank you. Well, first to say that the Transition Council is a 24-member council. Okay. And the 24-member council is working through 3 committees. And the 3 committees, the first committee is what we refer to as the Inauguration Committee. That is the committee that is charged with the responsibility to ensure a smooth and successful swearing-in ceremony. Okay. And it is that Inauguration Committee that has 13 subcommittees working on it. Then the second committee of the Transition Council is the Transition Document Committee. That Transition Document Committee is the committee that is charged with the responsibility of doing all the documents that this administration will be able to hand over to the incoming administration. The committee is going to work on the priority areas of this administration, where they are, what they have achieved successfully. So it's going to we're putting together a compendium of policies, programs, and projects with challenges and what has been achieved under the Buhari administration, and it will be now one of the documents to be handed over. In addition, there will be a sectoral policy briefs, which will also be handed. And these sectoral policy briefs will also be aligned with some of the areas that the manifesto of the president-elect where they are aligned, it will be highlighted, and such that the new administration will be able to be very clear right from the outset what is on the ground, what has gone so well, what are the maybe what we call low-hanging fruits, and then what are the challenges in some of the sectors. And clearly, they have now no need for reinventing the wheel, and then they were able to have a faster and smooth take-up as against what operated when the current president came into power in 2015. Then the third committee of the council is the Facilities, Security and Intelligence Committee. That committee is being chaired by the National Security Advisor, and it is that committee that has the mandate to ensure both overt and covert security for the entire, from the planning up to the process of the entire handing over, and in terms of also ensuring the security and the security personnel are being deployed to both the president-elect and the vice president-elect, and their offices are all also being secured and articulated. So essentially to affirm or to ensure, to confirm to you that there's the committee headed by the National Security Advisor with membership of the CDS, Chief of Defense Staff, IGP, DSS, NIA, the Permanent Secretary Defense, Permanent Secretary Interior, and all of those in that committee will ensure, are working assiduously to ensure that there's a successful and smooth transition of power come that day. And so the security threats are being taken on board. And like I said earlier, and also mentioned by the last speaker, the statement of the DSS is kind of telling Nigerians that we're aware, so note that we know you are planning this and we're ready for you. So, and I want to believe that that committee is ready also. So that's the three committees through which the council operates.
Wonderful. Okay, Nigerians are very hopeful. Let's come back to you again, Tobi. ING, the first time Nigerians heard of interim national government was in 1993 under when the then military president, General Babangida, handed over the reins of government to the late Ernest Shonekan in 1993. The circumstance of 1993 and today are different. There is relative peace in Nigeria. Election has been conducted. The matters, you know, of election petitions and the rest are before the courts. What else can, or how again can an ING really come to be in a country where the constitution does not recognize it?
Yeah, the answer is absolutely there is no way for ING. There is no way, there is no room for interim national government. I must be very clear. The constitution does not make any such provision. President Muhammadu Buhari has said and has demonstrated clearly that he's ready to retire to his farm in Daura. Election had been held, winner had been declared, Presidential Election Tribunal has been set up. Every necessary step to sustain our democracy has been taken. And therefore, all of us will have to seek redress. We have to follow this constitutional process. So to answer the question, absolutely there is no provisions, there is no way. I don't want to talk about the military, which would be an aberration, because it will be a violation of Section 1, subsection 2 of the Constitution of Nigeria, which has made provision for the way the country will be governed. So the circumstance is quite different. It is easier for a military government to hand over to an ING, but under a democracy, there is no such provisions. And I'm just still wondering how. But you know, this is Nigeria. We have been shocked before, but I'm confident that this process will go through. I can only advise those who are aggrieved to put their hope in the court. The court will look at all the issues. And those who are protesting, it is within their right to so do, but they should also recognize the right of other people who don't want to participate in the protest. You don't have to block the right of way. You don't have to loot people's shop because you are protesting. Otherwise, the crime you'll be committing will be even worse than what you are agitating for. So let us abide by the rule, and let us take if you read the DSS statement further, they advise everybody to be law-abiding and everything will work fine. So I don't think we should have any cause to fear. The president is very committed. We will have been very worried if otherwise is the case. But with the president's commitment, I think all of us can go to sleep.
Well, Tobi, the president time and again has said, you know what, after May 29th, I will no longer be your president. In fact, at some point he says, I'm just done already. I need to just retire. But Tobi, as we get ready to wrap up this conversation, I just want to reiterate a fact and get your point on this. It is 61 days to May 29th. And of course, the judicial process as stipulated in the Electoral Act says all petitioners in the tribunals have 180 days. And as it stands right now, no case has been heard just yet. Yes, some has filed, but none has been heard. Are you optimistic that, you know, in 61 days that all of these cases, or most of them, will be dispensed of?
Yeah, very optimistic, because the judiciary has done it before. This is not the first time. I mean, since the amendment to the Constitution, which limited the number of days within which they must hear the petition. They've done it and they can do it, you know, but there are a principle of fair hearing. If you file a case against me, the law allows me certain numbers of days to defend myself. They filed their petition, they've served the petition on the president-elect. He also has some number of days to prepare his defense, to gather his evidence. It is when both parties have put in their papers that the sitting will start. I can assure you, I've covered the Supreme Court that even the Court of Appeal, they start up to 6 p.m. in the night. They start very early at night and start at 6 p.m. just because they want to make sure they restrict themselves to the provision of the Constitution. So no doubt at all, the judiciary is up to the task. They are going to do it. It's such a stretch for them, but I'm sure they are prepared. They are going to put aside every other thing they are doing and give the attention to the election petition. So we should have no cause to fear. They will do it.
All right, they will do it. I love your optimism there, from the bar to the bench. Nigerians are hopeful that all will be well and May 29 will come and
we'll
pass.
Celebrate more than 24 years of uninterrupted democracy, really.
Thanks so very much, Tobi Soniyi, Arise Legal Advisor and Deputy Director News, and Dr. Habiba Lawal, Secretary of the Presidential.
Special Advisor to the President on Policy and Coordination. Thank you so much for joining us, both of you, tonight on the program.